Good day, ladies and gentlemen. As you might be aware, the Emperor of Mankind created 21 gene-crafted demigods called Primarchs to lead his armies, but only 19 of them are still around for the Great Crusade. So what exactly happened there? Who are they? And why are the 2nd and 11th Primarch never mentioned? That is a topic that we will be discussing today, or rather the topic that we will be speculating about today, as there is almost no lore about them. And if we look at it from a more meta perspective, it seems pretty likely that Games Workshop just created them so people could create their own stories for them. So keep in mind that nothing in this video should be taken as the absolute truth, and if you have any other ideas or beliefs about who they are, these are just as valid as mine. Also feel free to share them in the comments below, as I'd love to hear them. That being said, let's return to the topic. So like I said, there is very little known about them, but let's first take a look at what we do know about them. So just like all the other Primarchs, they were created by the Emperor on Terra and stolen by the Chaos Gods when they were still little babies in birthing pods. The Chaos Gods then dumped them all over the galaxy, and there's quite some discussion going on about how conscious the decisions were about which Primarch landed on which planet, but that could be a topic on its own really. Regardless, after all of this had happened, the Emperor set out to find and retrieve all of his lost sons, so he could give them a legion and send them out to fight in his Great Crusade. Now during this time frame, between the diaspora of the Primarchs and the Great Crusade, it is believed that the 2 missing Primarchs were found and executed for something. It is hinted at during a couple conversations between the Primarchs that they do remember their missing brothers, but that they have sworn to never talk about them again. So the most logical conclusion that one can draw from these hints is that they did something so heretical that they had to be culled and removed from history. The next question then is, what the hell did they do? What could they possibly have done to earn such a big punishment? I personally can only think of 3 things. 1 is being in cahoots with the Chaos Gods. 2, being a tech heretic. Or 3, refusing to bow to the Emperor. Chaos worship could earn you the death for obvious reasons, as you are basically forever the pawn of the biggest enemy of Big E. Tech heresy could put you in a dark age of technology scenario, or at the very least start a war with the Mechanicus. And finally, insubordination earns you the bullet in every faction in Warhammer, so why would this be the exception? Therefore, these 3 seem like good potential reasons for why these 2 Primarchs were Ctrl-Alt-Deleted. One of these we can however quickly forget in my opinion. I consider it very implausible that one of the missing Primarchs was worshipping Chaos because of 2 reasons. First of all, none of the Primarchs knew about Chaos or demons until a while into the Great Crusade, with the possible exception of Lorgar and Magnus. Yet we know that multiple other Primarchs were aware of what happened to their missing brothers, or might even have been there to execute the order. To me, it seems very unlikely that they witnessed one of their brothers leading an army of demons, and just casually forgot about the demons or wrote it off as just another xeno-species. Sure, this is not impossible considering Malcador's mindfuckery, but I think it's a little hard to believe. My second reason is far simpler, and that is that it would be ultra lame if one of the missing Primarchs would be a Chaos worshipper, since that's Lorgar's entire shtick. Having 2 Primarchs who have the same thing is just not gonna work for me. What? I never said I had 2 good reasons. So with that out of the way, that leaves us with tech heresy and insubordination. For that you have to keep another thing in mind, and that is that all the Primarchs have been made with a purpose in mind. Every profession that could be important to shape a kingdom is represented. Guilliman acts as the logistician and the lawmaker, Perturabo is an excellent engineer, Dorn will make it so that everything you conquer will actually remain yours, Lorgar is a philosopher, Angron is the empath that prevents the kingdom from becoming too tyrannical, or at least that was the idea, Fulgrim is the politician, Conrad is the all-knowing, all-seeing law control, Alfari is an Omegon, acts as a secret service, Magnus is the scholar and master of the arcane, and Sanguinius acts as a symbol of hope, while Jagatai acts as the critical voice of reason. The remaining Primarchs serve mostly military purposes, with Horus as the obvious charismatic macho leader, and the rest filling in all your obvious military roles. But then if you think about it, you miss 2 very obvious representatives. Where is the scientist on this list, and where is the diplomat? Why would you make so many Primarchs, even with some redundancy, and not create one that could cure diseases, improve crops, or micromanage ecosystems? Lost your arm? Oh, don't worry, Primarch Medicius has just invented a new substance derived from salamanders that will make your arm grow right back. Welp, just accidentally exterminatus the planet? Just leave it to the science angels. They'll have it livable again by the end of the millennium. Or what about a diplomat that could integrate potential amicable life forms into the Imperium and that could send up trade routes between planets and systems? Trade, export, import, they form the backbone of human economy, and yet no Primarch seems to give a damn about merchants. Where is Primarch Roustradeur, exporter of wares and importer of tithes? Well, I can tell you where Roustradeur and Medicius went. They got declared heretics and purged from existence. Of course, that's just a theory. A hammer theory. Yeah. Anyway, imagine this. Primarch Medicius lands on a planet with a poor atmosphere. Solar radiation makes it so that mutations and cancer run rampant among the human populations. Food is scarce as the seas are filled with poisonous pollutants that have also seeped into the soil, and an unknown war in the past has filled certain areas with lethal gases. Yet, Medicius doesn't care. After all, this is what he was made for. This comes natural to him. Within months, he has set up algal farms and fermentation reactors to produce food and chemicals. He has created a factory that pumps out AI-controlled robots that gather useful metals and minerals from the poisonous depths. Even the people of the planet have become healthier, as dozens of new medications and treatments have been invented. Years later, the planet has transformed into a utopia of sorts. Even the inhabitants have been greatly augmented with a variety of genetic improvements that render them stronger, healthier, and smarter than normal humans. All is going well, and plans are being made to expand to one of the neighboring planets, when all of a sudden, the Emperor arrives with his golden armada. The Emperor is greatly impressed by his son's work, but then he turns a glance aside where he sees the temperature bar of the Fabricator General's brain jar combusting. Abominable intelligence, mutations, invention! Followed by his best Greta Thunberg impression. Jokes aside, if this was the case, we know that Big E basically would have had no choice but to exterminate the shit out of this planet, as he couldn't have afforded to weaken his alliance with the Mechanicus. After all, this is also why he tolerated the idiotic cult of Mars to exist, even though their beliefs are a direct contradiction to the Imperial truth. But what about Rouge Traideur, you ask? Well, what do you think would happen when you put an expert in diplomacy, trade and foreign relationships in a universe filled with Xenos? Trade routes and alliances, that's what happens. We have already seen that plenty of human populations formed relationships with other species in some of the Horus Heresy books. Now imagine if you had a Primarch present specifically created to do just that. Big E might have initially wanted to use him mostly for setting up the economy within the Imperium and to maybe integrate some minor Xenos into society, such as the cyborg orangutans or the Little Watchers. What he didn't want was a trade alliance with the Eldar. Big E might have confronted him about this, but without knowing about the secret project of the Emperor or about the primordial truth, the decision to not cooperate with other intelligent species seems utterly idiotic. Side note, by the way, we are assuming that the Dark Forest theory does not apply to 40k, as there's no reason to assume that it does, based on what we've seen on the Xenos so far. So not willing to shoot himself in the foot like this, and with the usual businessman bravado and arrogance, he tells the Emperor no. We have already learned that the Emperor views his sons as tools to be used, and what does one do with a tool that refuses to cooperate? Well, you send a message telling him that he's talking mad shit for someone within the range of cyclonic torpedoes. And that, sadly, was the end of Rouge Traideur. So what do you think? Do you agree that it would be plausible for a scientist and a diplomat to be the two missing Primarchs? And do you agree that those two professions have a high chance of meeting their end within the Imperium? Or do you think that it was something else entirely? Please let me know in the comments, and I'll be back again next week with another book review. See ya!